The 2015 Polyglot Gathering is brought to you by italki. Become fluent in any language.
There's the white horse.
Okay, or maybe. Okay, start. Everybody knows the area approximately. There's Serbo-Croatian spoken. Estonia. There are four main dialect groups. This is the first. It's only spoken in the coastal area. It's Czecharian. They have a lot of vocabulary from the old Venetian language because this area was Venetian colonized. Here we speak Kaikarian. It sounds very similar to Slovenian, but it's officially a dialect of the Serbo-Croatian language. And here in the south, they speak Torlakian. It sounds a bit like Macedonian and Bulgarian, and the grammar is also belonging to the Macedonian-Bulgarian family. And here, the main part, they speak Stokarian. And it's divided into two main groups, the Ikarian and the Biekarian. And these dialect borders are totally different from the borders we all know from television, newspapers. You know, Croatia, Serbia, Montenegro,
Kosovo.
Yes, Kosovo is here. Or exactly here, because the north part is spoken Serbo-Croatian and the main part is spoken Albanian. And the borders of the dialects are absolutely not matching with the borders of the countries. And this is my basics for discussion. So it's totally different. And okay, good.
You said discussion. Did you want to have us discuss now?
I just wanted to give examples that the dialects are totally different than the countries, because it's not known in the world. It's very few known. And people try to find the differences between Serbian, Croatian, Bosnian, but actually there's really totally different dialects. For example, it's like when you speak someone from, this is like if someone from Bavaria speaks someone to Austria, very similar. And this is like someone from Munich and Nuremberg is speaking, because it's two other dialect family.
Also, the Ekavski and the Yekavski are called like that because many words have the sound ye and
Yes,
respectively. For instance, in Ekavski, child is dete, and in Yekavski, child is diete.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any other? Because it's an interactive part.
So if you, let's say we want to order the free teach yourself Serbo-Croatian, which one do they focus on? Do you know what?
Yekavski.
Yekavski
Is the standardized Serbo-Croatian before before Yugoslavia was split. Now the standard in Serbia is Ekavski. But in the west of the former Yugoslavia, it's still Yekavski.
For SML, it is the same.
What?
For SML,
just like
Oh,
pictures
for essays
and so on.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
any comments, questions? Because it's an interactive.
It must also be explained that the names of the dialects come from the pronoun what.
Yes,
Yeah,
What
and
is
so-
Again, I have not
Stark, klar, count.
be very short because I don't have much time. Anyone else? If no questions or comments, I will give the word to the next one.
On peut distinguer les langues écrites de la langue. Yesterday I gave a short introduction to the history of the language of the fairies, and now it will be about the Nordic languages and again in Esperanto or in French. Comment distinguer les langues nordiques quand ils sont écrites? Hein? C'est un problème. Pour nous, les langues sont une comme l'autre. Islandais a deux lettres propres. L et Thorn. Si vous trouvez les deux, c'est islandais. Et, eux et eux. Pour le pharyngien, c'est seulement S. On sait L en pharyngien, mais pas le son, et E, c'est comme en danois. C'est pharyngien. Le suédois, c'est comme eux, comme en allemand, avec deux points. C'est suédois. Et le danois et le norvégien. Eux, mais c'est difficile de distinguer le danois du norvégien. Mais par exemple, le danois a des fins avec un consonant et le norvégien peut avoir deux. Exemple, botanique, c'est danois et botanique avec deux cas, c'est norvégien. Si on a un texte, on peut chercher les lettres et décider et distinguer les langues nordiques écrites.
Est-ce que je peux tenir une seule chose? Si vous trouvez botanique et un mot avec KV, alors c'est le nouveau norvégien et c'est HV, c'est le bokmål.
Ou le danois.
Ou le danois, mais le danois n'a pas les deux cas.
Ah oui, c'est seulement un cas.
Pouvez-vous écrire les majuscules de forme et l'autre disons les majuscules.
Le majuscule,
Comment se prononce? Comment se prononce-t-il?
But it stands for it stands for but since the Spanish devoicing is F.
dans le même plus
Le
grand.
le même.
Also den Kebab ist Schwedisch.
C'est tout.
Après, that's your time.
Fredrik?
Polyglots. If you haven't yet got my free hugs, then go and get them after this. I still have some left. And if you already have got a free hug, then I have more for you, for free. No.
Four more minutes.
Everyone, come on.
Seen Fawlty Towers.
Woman set up.
Where my dad says, I can speak English. I learned it from a book. That was the level I was at some years ago when I was learning Czech from a book. And it went really well for the first chapter of the book. But when I read the second chapter, I understood like nothing at all because I had already forgotten the words from the first chapter. My memory was really, really bad. I tried to create some flashcards to solve it. You know, these you cut out on a paper, it takes a long time, then you write one word you want to learn on the front, the translation on the back. Well, it just took a long time and I was stuck. I was no longer on my way of learning a foreign language. A couple of years later, I found a computer program that is called Anki that allows me to have the flashcards in my computer instead of on paper. And it has some kind of scientific way of sorting the cards. So I only practice the cards that are the most important and urgent for me instead of wasting time having to practice those cards with words that I already know. So that gave me my first superpower, the power of perfect memory. With the help of Anki, I could finally finish the book and learn 2,000 words of Czech, which is quite a good accomplishment, but not good enough. So I was confused, what do I do afterwards? Czech is not a popular language. When I finish the first book, there is no second book to continue. Then another program appeared to try to solve that. It's called Learning with Text. It's a kind of buggy beast, more than a proof of concept than a serious program. But the concept is really, really great. So instead of having to wait for an author of a language book to write a new text that I can study in the language book, I can take any text I want. I can go to a news website if I want to learn the journalistic vocabulary, download today's news and insert into the program and understand it and learn the words at the same time. Or if I want to learn conversational language, I take my email conversations, copy them, insert into the program, and instead of saying to people, I don't understand you, now I understand with the help of this program, and I also learn the words in the messages so I can use the same vocabulary for replying. So that's my second superpower. But I like things to be of really, really high quality. So I made my own program, which has both the features of learning with text and the features of Anki, both combined in the same program. And I optimized it to be super fast, because that's the way I like to learn. So with my program, it takes me 1 minute from the time I don't know anything about a word until the time the word is firmly in memory. Not 1 minute in one go, but spread out over several days, a few seconds each day for each word. in the same pattern as Anki uses. With that program, I normally learn 50 words per day. If I'm feeling in a good mood, I learn 100 words in a day. And now the program has a bit outgrown my personal interest, and I want to take it to a bigger audience, like you here. I could go to some investor, sell it to a corporation. That would not be good, but I'd rather like to make something by the community for the community. So now I ask you, anyone who wants to join and perfect this program, that please contact me. Or if you do not want to collaborate on perfecting the program now, then you can wait until it's ready for the public, and then everyone will be able to use it for free. Is my time up?
Yes.
How do people apply for a beta test?
Who's next?
Jana? Yeah.
So I'm very glad to see you here, and I'm very glad that I'm able to be here, because 5 years ago I couldn't ever even imagine that I may speak foreign languages. I only spoke Russian, and foreign languages was something terrible for me, really terrible. And I had to learn English, because everyone has to learn English. And for my exam in English in my university, I knew that I will have to have conversation about some topic, and I knew what are the topics. And I wrote some texts which were really not perfect text, and I gave this text to my friend who spoke English quite well. And I asked her to correct this text, and then she corrected this text for me, and then I learned all of them by heart, because I knew that otherwise I will never able to say any word in English. And I still remember that my first text was something like, let me introduce myself. My name is Yana Husanova, I'm a student of Ural State University, and so on and so on. So I thought that I will never be able to speak. It was completely unreachable goal for me. But my parents both are Esperantists, and my father always told me that if you will learn Esperanto, then other languages will be easier for you. But I didn't want to believe in it. But once I met other Esperantists, and I decided that I will give it a try. And I learned Esperanto, and in summer of 2011, I went to my first Esperanto meeting, and all of a sudden I began to speak foreign language, and I even began to sing in foreign language. And after that time, finally I learned English, I learned German, and now I speak a little bit of Italian, and I'm learning some other languages, but not very successfully yet. Yes, and I think that now I can call myself a polyglot, and I sang Esperanto fluent. And I tried to analyze what happened to me, what gave me the superpower to speak other languages. And I think that the first thing I learned when I began to speak Esperanto is to talk with my hands. Because it was very hard. I had to explain, I didn't know all the words. I had to explain that, oh, this is like some animal which is like that, and it has 4 legs. Yes, and it was very hard for me, but with the time I realized that if you don't know the word, it's not that important. You always can to explain to another person the word. And another thing I learned is to do a lot of mistakes every day. I always, my first days of speaking Esperanto, I always said past tense instead of present tense, and so on and so on. And I really couldn't control my speaking, my talk. How do I speak? But I learned that it's okay. With the time, you improve and improve and improve. And another thing I learned is that from the very beginning, you need to begin to try to talk to people in foreign languages. Even if you don't have anyone to talk, then you should to try to talk to people in the foreign languages like inside the mind, because sometimes always when I think I have a dialogue with someone in my mind, and if you want to learn foreign languages, it's very good to try to think in this, try to express all the things you can express in this language. And the last thing I learned is that when you read some books, you don't need to translate very carefully everything. You should learn the words and then read it again until you will have a feeling that you understand it. And before that, I always tried to translate every word, and it was very useless because I had to translate text about my profession, which is astrophysics. And I tried to translate the word cosmic microwave background in Russian, and it made no sense until I finally learned what is it and understood what is this concept. It's much more important to learn concepts than the real how to translate this word exactly to this language. Yes, and I think that gave me a possibility to learn languages and speak them. Yes, thank you.
Mi acabas miracolo. Este es un libro. Mi avvens al narcotico sin paroli Esperanto. Mi parolis lingua con paroloj de Esperanto, sed mi Esperanto estis kiel tardigrado. Tardigrado estas malgranda bestio que es tre malfacile morti. Mi Esperanto estas kiel mumio. Mi portis un texto, mi legis, estas facile legi Esperanton, non povis paroli in Esperanto. Hieraŭ al vespro mi compris mirakulon. Mi pensis in Esperanto, mi mankas parolon, mi povis trovi, nun parolis Esperanto. I'll take the rest in English. No, because okay, but I'll say it anyway. Okay, the problem is Esperanto. I'll say it in Esperanto. Okay. In Esperanto no estas possible trovi artikolojn de dinosaurioj, de Rafael-steloj, de tardigradojn, por tio no mi interesas Esperanto. Io credis che base condicio per lerni lingua che existas texto interesajn per mi. Esperanto, esperantistoj parolas de Esperanto et aparte en monda. Mi credas che astronomia, paleontologia estas pli interessante. Sed poste renkontigo mi Esperanto venos tardigrado fin al julio, kiam mi partoprenis en la kongreso de Lilo, mi Esperanto revivigos en Lilo.
Hello. One of my hobbies is to look at the etymology, speaking today, of phrases and sayings, especially German sayings, as I'm German, and there's some sayings we use in German every day. You hear them a lot, but you don't know where they come from. So I've brought you 3 phrases or sayings which you probably may or may not have heard if you know German. If not, afterwards you will know what they mean, and you will have an advantage over most German native speakers because normally a German native speaker does not know where these terms come from. And to follow the stereotype about those Germans, all three of them have something to do with pigs. So the first phrase I would like to talk about is Schwein gehabt. Question for everyone who is not a German native speaker in this room. Can you imagine what this means? First of all, actually the literal translation would be pig head. Pig head with H-A-D. You know, you had pig. Pig? No. Actually the opposite, exactly. It means you were extremely lucky, and with lucky we mean dumb luck, meaning you didn't deserve it, but you were quite lucky. And that phrase stems from the Middle Ages actually. So, for example, you had a market, you had a tournament, and everyone was encouraged to take part. Now, the one who was the bottom of the ladder, who was actually the worst of the worst, would get a consolation prize, a little piglet, which is very, very great prize. I mean, it's very valuable. But he had the shame of walking that piglet back home. So everybody in the village could say, "Ha! Look, he had pig," meaning he didn't deserve it, but he got something of it anyway. That's the first phrase. The second one, die Sau durchs Dorf treiben. To chase a sow through the village. Yeah, it's probably, yeah. The green one probably, yeah. Die or eine Sau durchs Dorf treiben. To chase a sow or the sow through the village. Any idea where this comes from? What it means. First, what it means. Do you know what it means?
Like a pointless chase.
Kinda. It's one of those topics which are being rolled up again and again and again. Oh, they're discussing the crisis in Greece again. They are again chasing that sow through the village. You know, it's just one of those topics which are being chased through the town again and again. And the idea of that phrase is back in time, and they had tax collectors coming around, and they would have a look at the livestock. And so the farmers got quite annoyed about new regulations where every sow needed to be looked at. So what the farmers did was they would chase one sow from the village, dress it up a little, and then just let it do a round and going through the village again, and did that until the tax collector was quite fed up with it and said, "Okay, stop. I've seen enough. Thanks. I'll leave." And that is and to chase a sow through the village. Okay, the third one, and this is the most enigmatic one. And now I'm done. This is das kann kein Schwein lesen.
True.
First, who knows what it means literally?
No pig can read this.
No pig can read this. Exactly. What does it mean?
What is it?
Completely unintelligible.
Your handwriting.
Nobody. The handwriting is atrocious. I cannot read a thing. This is absolutely unintelligible. So, how many pigs do you know who can read? I guess nobody. So why is that a phrase? Why are we talking about a pig? And that is one of the things that few people actually know, and it comes from the 19th century actually, where we had still a lot of analphabetic people. Let's just finish the sentence. The idea was that poor farmers needed help with the paperwork because they couldn't afford to send their kids to school. They didn't know how to read. And one of the biggest families in Schleswig-Holstein helped them. They are big farmers and they're pig farmers, so their name was Pig. So that das kann kein Schwein lesen means nobody, not even a member of the family pig can read that.
Okay, hi. So my talk is why would anyone ever learn an artificial language? So how many of you, could you raise your hands, how many of you know at least one or have learned or are learning? Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, okay, me too.
You do count Esperanto, right?
Yeah, of course, Esperanto, Klingon, Loshpan, whatever. So, okay, many people who didn't raise their hand might ask themselves, why would anyone really learn Esperanto? Well, okay, one thing that Jana already said in her little talk is the so-called propedeutic value. That means if you learn Esperanto or actually any other language, but Esperanto you can learn it in a very short time, that gives you some superpower. So, not really a superpower, but you know how languages work, you suddenly have a more abstract view on languages, and it helps you learning other languages. So in the case of Esperanto, it helps you learning Italian, for example, or Spanish or French, because they are a little bit similar, or Turkish, because the grammar is a little bit similar too. But it also helps you in general with any languages, because, well, the more languages you learn, the more you see how languages in general work, or how different and difficult, or how different languages can be. So that's one point. Another point for learning languages is, and by the way, this is not only true for Esperanto or Interlingua or some languages that try to be an international language, but also true for Klingon. For example, I learned Klingon like 12 years ago, or no, that was Esperanto way. 20 years ago, I think 20 years ago, so I learned Klingon, or started learning Klingon, and it actually did help me, not because any language is close to Klingon, but because some of the grammatical features inside Klingon are similar to quite exotic features in other languages, like, for example, the causative suffix. When I learned Klingon, I didn't know Esperanto yet, which is pretty strange. But so I suddenly knew and suddenly saw how the causative suffix works, which just turns something into, like, make something red, make something black. And that helped me a lot in learning other languages, or in seeing how the grammar structure of other languages works. So another important factor, of course, is international meetings. That's very true for Esperanto. Like, I mean, this is half an Esperanto meeting, you could say. And if you go to a real Esperanto meeting, it's very similar. Just everyone's speaking Esperanto. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun too. So, for example, also Klingon meetings, when you go there, it's a little bit smaller, so maybe 30, 40 people. But it's still fun. And you could have the same with Loshban. Well, Loshban, the meetings are less fun, but more technical, I'd say. Okay. What else is there? Another very important reason for people to learn artificial languages, and that's mostly true for experimental languages that try to test something, is to get a feeling of a totally different kind of language. So if I'm a speaker of Turkish or Italian or German and I learn Esperanto, well, the feeling is similar. But if I learn a language that's very, very exotic, I suddenly realize, oh wow, this language, even if it's artificial, tends to think in totally different ways. So Klingon or Loshban or Tokipona or Ifquil, they work in different ways, and you have to restructure your language, you have to rethink your mind, and that's also very interesting. Geekiness is another factor. So if you want to do something geeky, oh yeah, I'm learning Loshban. That's the reason too. Of course, another reason that's very, I mean, you can all imagine that if you're a big fan of Star Trek, like I am, or if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings or Avatar, of course you get the idea, maybe I should learn Klingon, or Sindarin, or Navi, or whatever, Tectonese. And another thing is art. If you're into art, maybe you've seen the Elvish letters, the Tengvar letters. Maybe you think, wow, that's beautiful. I think it's beautiful, even though I've never learned Elvish itself. But I've learned the alphabet because I thought, wow, that's amazing. It looks beautiful. I want to write that. So you could learn just the alphabet and then write German or English or Esperanto with it. And maybe the most important thing for me, or which I think is very important, which gives me a good feeling when learning an artificial language, is I would say finite grammar. So if you learn a natural language, a complete language, something like, I mean a complex language like Czech or Russian or even Indonesian. Okay, I'll finish this sentence. You have the feeling, oh my god, there's so much, I will never finish that, and then you say phrases and people tell you, no, we don't say it like this. And you think, oh, but it should be grammatically correct, but people don't say it. With artificial languages, usually the case is, if it's grammatically correct, you can say it. Like in Esperanto, you could, instead of hospitalo, you can say malsanulejo, which is a combination of the unhealthiness people place, something like this. And you would think, well, there's an easier way to say that, but it's still correct. Or there's the Esperanto word nun, which means now, but you can also say ĉi-tempe, which means like this timely. It's not the real, people don't use that word, but it's still correct. Yeah.
Does anyone know this author, Jared Diamond? He writes wonderful books about traditional culture. He's a polymath. He's also a polylinguist. And I bought this book on the way here at the airport. And there's an amazing chapter on the traditional way of being a polymath in places like the Brazilian jungle, New Guinea, etc. Just to give a quick background, as you probably mostly know, there's roughly about 7,000 languages in the world. About one is dying every 9 days, and over half of those are spoken by 1,000 or fewer people. And so then we jump to the Brazilian Colombian border, where there are tribes of about 10,000 people speaking about 21 different languages. And they have their own way, which they've been using since time immemorial, of learning different languages, because they have a longhouse culture. And that means that young adults of both sexes get their training to become mature human beings in that place. They learn all sorts of things. It's like a sort of university, whatever you like. And there are also societies in which, in order to get married, women come into the tribe of the husband. So what happens is these girls come along, they go into the longhouse, they learn the language of at least, already there are different tribes together, so 4 men, say, from different tribes. Then they bring their own 3 languages, or however many they are. They get languages from visitors, and they learn the languages. And I go all over the world. I've been in Central Asia, in Africa, and places where many people speak many languages without all the wonderful high-tech stuff that we have. They may not be able to read or write, but they can speak, they can trade, they can do all the normal human things. And I'd just like to read you a little bit from this, because he does it better than I could. Only after the Vopes River Indians have come to know a language well by hearing and passively acquiring vocabulary and pronunciation do they start speaking it. They carefully keep languages separate and work hard to pronounce each language correctly. They told Sorensen, this is the guy who did a study on them, that it took them 1 or 2 years to learn a new language fluently. High value is placed on speaking correctly, and letting words from other languages creep into one's conversation is considered shameful.
So, after these beautiful words, I must admit that there might be some words creeping into our talk. So we're going to have a little language snack. It's about slow language learning. We always talk about how to learn a language fast and everything. And I think why not just enjoy it? So we're going to share the passion with you. And at the end, I have a little surprise as well. So yeah, if you don't understand the language in which we're going to communicate, not a problem. Reason for you perhaps to learn it.
Or we translate for you after in English.
Perhaps. Perhaps.
Okay.
Zo, kun je me zeggen, wat motiveert jou eigenlijk om talen te leren? Is het voor werk, geld of zijn er nog andere redenen?
Per dire la verità, io credo che l'italiano, per esempio, è molto necessario per me per il lavoro, però anche per comunicare con i miei amici che sono d'Italia, non tutti però ho anche amici che sono d'Italia, visto che io vivo a Monaco di Baviera, che si trova al sud, per quelli che non lo sanno, si trova al sud della Germania, ci sono tanti italiani che parlano anche il tedesco, però anche italiani che non lo parlano, quindi mi serve per tutte e due, per lavoro, però anche per motivi di diciamo, come? Personali. C'è qualcuno che parla l'italiano?
Zoals welke persoonlijke redenen dan?
Je pense que par exemple, il y a personnes comme seulement les personnes regardant ma famille ou mes amis, mais aussi personnes que je rencontre, que je peux rencontrer par exemple en ma vie à l'école ou quand je vais à l'université. Il y a personnes qui parlent le français, l'italien, quelques langues, je ne sais pas. Et je peux essayer sa langue. Par exemple, s'il y a un homme turc, oui. S'il y a un homme turc qui ne parle pas l'allemand, je peux, et je sens qu'il parle le turc, je peux changer en turc, c'est ça. Qu'est-ce que tu penses? Pourquoi les beaucoup de langues que tu parles sont
M'intéresse.
aider.
Exactement. Donc je vais répondre a cette question.
Je parle pas français.
Oui, no, hay aucun souci. Lo que pasa es que me gustan mucho los idiomas, pero muchas veces estoy aprendiendo idiomas no para hablarlo perfectamente, pero solo porque me gusta. Leyendo las palabras, el sueno. También si, por ejemplo, no me necesita para el trabajo, pero es que, sinceramente, es el slow learning. Y ahora, por ejemplo, después de voy a Portlandia por la primera vez y voy a empezar a aprender el polaco. La razón es también viajando cuando, por ejemplo, estás comunicando en el idioma en un país, el contacto con la gente. Es que yo hice amistades por la vida. Et ça, franchement, c'est quelque chose que franchement, j'apprécie énormément. Sinon, donc, comme j'avais dit tout à l'heure, le slow learning, là, cette année, en fait, on étudie avec un petit groupe l'albanais. Tous ceux qui veulent encore se joindre à notre groupe, vous êtes les bienvenus. Und sonst möchte ich auch noch sagen, dass ihr könnt mich heute, oder ja eigentlich heute, weil ich bin nur heute da, könnt ihr mir fragen, weil ich möchte eigentlich ein Lied schreiben mit euch allen und was über Sprachen, aber in mehreren Sprachen. So, wenn ihr interessiert seid, kommt zu mir, gebt mir ein und fragt meine E-Mail-Adresse, ich schreibe es auch und dann könnt ihr mir das zuschicken, aber schöne Sätze in eine Sprache und dann mit all das machen wir dann so ein Liedchen. So, ja. Allora,
Bir şey söylemek istedim. Tamam mı? O zaman ben de biraz Türkçe biliyorum. Burada bir Türk bir insan var mı?
Oh, hayret, wow.
O zaman siz anlıyorsunuz ki ben Türkçe iyi bilmiyorum. Ama daha iyi öğrenmek istiyorum. Ama size bir sorum var. Ne diyorsunuz? Okay, just nasıl how do you say can?
Depends on what you say.
How can I?
Nasıl öğrenebilirim?
Evet. Nasıl öğrenebilirim? Daha iyi Türkçe öğrenebiliriz. Almanca öyle.
Belki Türkçe dizi seyredirsin veya müzik dinlersin.
Okay. İnternette birkaç website var.
Thank you very much. If you're interested, thank you. And also for the Czech Romanian.
Here it is. Sorry.
You start English. You can start
So, y'all just heard a bunch of languages that y'all heard like 1,000 times, but y'all never heard mine before. So I'm going to talk in my dialect from the southern U.S. that my father talks with, because y'all don't ever hear that here in Berlin, I bet. Definitely not in one of these language things you got going on, so I'm going to tell you about my dialect and how to talk like it, okay? Yeah. So people that talk like this probably don't know IPA too well. You know, like IPA, how to do it right, and that includes me. So I'm not going to put it up here for you. I'm going to try my best. If you know better than me, please tell me what it is, and I'll write it up here for you. Alright, so the way to do a dialect in English from another dialect in English is to try to compare like the vowel sounds first. So I try to do that for you. If it's wrong, tell me. Here we got an example with this guy right here. I think that he is a, what is it? Can you do it for me? Oh, okay, cool. So whatever the sound is in but, B-U-T, you can hear what I'm doing. It's different. So I got a perfect example is the word dump truck. Dump truck. It's a little bit like a book, instead of dump truck, like this. And they say what, and not what. What? What? There's one for you. Another one is, of course, well, we'll talk about pronunciation first. This sound, I think, is what? What is this? Ow. Ow. Okay, for us it's ow. Ow. I don't know how to write it for you, but. What are y'all talking about? About. So what is this about? What's it about? What? Okay. What else we got? Pronunciation's boring. Let's talk about something else. We got some words we use in the South that y'all probably don't use anywhere else. One of them's y'all. You know this already, probably. So, but yeah, we don't say you guys or you or anything like that. We say y'all. Hey, y'all. And it's got to be more than one person. It's going to be 2, 3, 5, 10. Here we go. What else? Oh, we don't ever talk about God unless we're in church. So instead we say gosh. Instead of God, if we're talking like, oh my gosh, say gosh. And dang instead of damn. So, you know, instead of cursing, we say gosh dang it. Sounds better to me. What else we got? Oh, of course. We got fixing to, but in the dialect, we take the G's off these. Fixing to, this means you're planning to do something. So I'm fixing to go out tonight. Fixing to, I'm fixing to. Fixing to. Every time you have the ing, you take the G off, say fixing, singing, dancing, talking, working. Yeah, what else we got? Oh. I reckon. People in other places say this too, but we say I reckon a lot, even if we don't reckon. Oh, last one, we put modal verbs together. So instead of I might be able to, we say I might could. It's like, oh, you think she should try and go to that college or what? Is that the right college for her? Well, we could say, well, I reckon she might could, or she might should. Yeah, she might should. She might should go. She might ought to go. Let's see, last one. We never say the TH in them. Them. Ever. Never say the TH in them. It's not necessary, just like this G is not necessary. Take it out. So you can say, did you talk to him? To them. To them, not to them. Never say them, ever. To them. Did you talk to him? Yeah, I talked to him. I already did them. I finished them. What else? Yeah, that's it. Any questions?
Where exactly do you come from?
I'm from, I draw a map.
United States.
It's Michigan, we don't know what it looks like. So. I'm from here.
Which state?
A-T-L-A-N-T-A, Atlanta. There's no T there. Atlanta, Georgia.
So, whom did you talk to?
Who did I talk to? I talked to him.
Okay. you can't stress it.
I talked to him. No, I don't think so. I don't think he can.
Do you say Atlanta or like Lana?
Atlanta. Atlanta. So this is not like Atlanta, and this one's not even there at all.
Atlanta.
Do you even say the A really well, or is it just like Lana?
Atlanta. Yeah, Atlanta.
You write Svetlana, Svetlanta?
No, that's it. Okay.
So, if after the gathering you are going to southern US, you know how to speak over there. But if you plan to stay in Europe and go to some other cities, for example, Paris, Prague, you will probably stay in a hotel. In those hotels, they have glass doors. And on the door, for example, in France, you will see Kihei. Everybody knows what it means? Pull. Okay. If the door is a glass door and they put a transparent sticker on it, and it is only on one side, you have to read. You know, if you see this, you have to pull. You don't have to push, you don't have to pull, sorry. Okay, the same in US, in London, you have pull. If you stay in Berlin, ziehen.
Wow.
You could take another.
Okay.
There are
There are two other colors there.
Take red one. Okay,
Yes.
the red
No,
one.
the red one's dead.
Red one. Okay. Now comes the problem. Come to Prague. How do they write pool?
They don't.
If you have courage, you can go further. You can go to Bratislava, to Slovakia. The language is a little bit softer. So usually you have to search for push. They write it, clutch it, they will clutch it, or clutch it. It is different. So pay attention if you see tahat, and there are two people from both sides who are pulling. So I think now we are finished because.
I got a question on this, because I never saw Tahat in Prague. I see Sem and Tam. It means there and here.
Sometimes, okay, there
I
are
never
versions with
saw
some and
tahat.
tam, and sometimes they write tahat.
Okay.
To pull, yeah.
Okay.
I just have also one comment. In Portuguese, the word for pull is puxar. So it can be very confusing. To push is the opposite. Yeah, so puxar, as you see on the door, pushy.
Yeah. Okay, so now we are breaking at 4 o'clock. The next talk is starting.